Hello and welcome to everybody on Cloud Fitness. So in today's video of functions in Spark, I'm going to talk about two very important functions which is from JSON and the schema of JSON. So these two functions are almost similar to my previous video in which I have talked about from CSV and the schema of CSV. So we use both of these functions just like from CSV and schema of CSV functions. Right, so from JSON, if you see, it is actually used to parse JSON strings. Schema of JSON is actually used to get the schema in a proper DDL format in case of JSON strings. So similarly, if you have watched my previous videos, right, from CSV was actually used to parse CSV strings. Right, and schema of CSV was actually used to get the schema in the DDL format for the CSV strings. In the similar case, we have this from JSON and the schema of JSON. So why do we have these functions, right? Because in the data you might get a particular column, right, which is a JSON string, right, which is a string but the format is of JSON, right? In that case, you need to parse that data, right, to be able to work on it. So that is why we use this from JSON, schema of JSON and these types of functions. So when we talk about from JSON, it is essentially same as I talked about CSV, just that instead of CSV it is JSON, right? So whenever you have a column which contains a JSON string, right, from JSON can actually parse it into a map type, or it can parse your data into struct type or array type with whatever schema you specify. In case it is not parsable, it will return null. And in case you can specify the schema hard coded, you can hard code the schema, or you can also use schema of JSON function to fetch the schema of the JSON string. Right, in the schema of JSON function you need to pass the JSON string literal, which when you use the schema of JSON along with the string literal, along with the JSON data, along with the JSON string literal, what it does is it returns you the structure of your the JSON format that you pass in. That is called the schema. It will give you the schema in a DDL usable format, right? And from JSON is actually used to parse it. So now let me move on to the portal and see exactly how we can do. So remember that in case you need help on any function, right, what you can do is you can simply type %Python. Basically right now my notebook is in Scala, that's why I have written this command. But yeah, you can always type in help function, right, and you can pass in the name of the function. So for example, if you need help on schema of JSON, then simply type in help schema of JSON, and then you can actually see the details of that particular function will actually pop up here. You can see all the details and even the example of the schema of JSON here itself. Now similarly, if you need help on from JSON, right, so you can simply type in this keyword help, and inside that help function, which is an inbuilt function, you can type in that you need the help from JSON. So just help, open bracket, close bracket, and inside that you can type in from JSON. Now in that case, you are going to get the details of this from JSON function. It will tell you what it takes in as an input, how to use it, all these details you can get it here as well. So now when we talk about this from JSON function, so let me first import the functions that and modules which I needed. So I'm just running my first command, which is nothing but pyspark.sql.functions import star and pyspark.sql.type import star, and then I am just creating a data set in command number 3. If you see Python, right, data 1 2 3 4, so this is my first data, and then I am giving this JSON in my data. So similarly, you might get a column in your data which is of a JSON format, right, but it is a string. So if you look here, whenever you have these 3 quotes, right, anything inside the quote is called a string, right? So if you see here, JSON is what? JSON is a set of key value pair. So key is apple, value is 34, and this curly brackets, basically it is a JSON format. But now when I have put this JSON format inside the string, right, inside these quotes, triple quotes, what happens is it becomes a string format. So it is a string formatted JSON. And then I have a third column which is an integer, right? Now I try to create a data frame from here. I use this data that I've created, and I just define the column names, random column names, okay, and then I just display this particular data frame. So if you look at this data frame, right, the first value key, what is key? Key is nothing just 1 2 3 4. It is long, right? Value is string, it is not JSON. It is a JSON in the form of a string. Similarly, again the third column 1 2 3 7 6 7, it is again long, right? And if you go here, this is how my data looks like: key, value, test. Now value, it is actually a JSON formatted string. It is a string type, but it is JSON, right? So now if I want to fetch value from here, how do I do that? If I want to parse this JSON, how do I do that? Right, to do that, if you can see this command 4, I am saying df.select, select from my data frame, right? Use this from JSON function, select what? df.value. df.value. Now the moment I do df.value, I am going to get this particular string value. So this is nothing but this is a JSON string that I am getting. And then here I am defining the schema. Apple int. What is this? This is nothing but it is just the schema. Apple is the column name, key name, right? And int is nothing but the data type, right? And then I'm just aliasing it to the name of JSON and then simply displaying it. Now when I run this, what is going to happen? Right? When I run this, what is actually going to happen? So let me in fact run my this command as well. I did not run it, so let me simply run it. Okay, so now I ran the first command and now let me run my second command, basically the command 4. Now you can see the output, right? df.select, select from my data frame, right? What do I need to select? Select this. Now what exactly is this? Right, this is nothing but it is taking the JSON string as an input, df.value as an input, applying the schema on top of it and getting me the input for my from JSON function. Now this from JSON function, actually I told you it can return you struct, it can return you array, it can return you map, right? These are the three things it actually returns. So if you look at this, right, and if I see this display df01 here, what my JSON has returned, it has returned the struct data type, right? This has returned my struct data type. So now you can see basically it has turned my JSON string into struct. So this is how you can actually use your from JSON to convert your JSON string into struct. Now similarly, if I want to convert it into map, right, same syntax. From JSON, df.value, which is nothing but the JSON string, and then inside here I am giving it what? I am giving it the schema, right? Map. I am giving it the schema that okay, my schema is map, right? The first value is string and the second value is integer, right? And then if I run it, you will actually see that this from JSON is actually converting it into map. Right, this from JSON is converting it into map, and the key is string over here, right? Key is string. Now similarly here also, if you see, the JSON here becomes struct. So the column became struct and here it became map. Now basically I'll tell you how we can, instead of hard coding the schema over here, how we can pass the schema, right? Now let's say I want to convert it into map type. Now what I can do is I can put a schema variable and I can say map type. Map type is basically an inbuilt function, right? It is an inbuilt function. Inside this map type you can pass in the map is what? Key value pairs, right? So you can pass in the data type of your key, the data type of values over here like this. And now if I run this cell, what is exactly going to happen? Schema, I am already defining that my schema 01 is nothing but it is map, and inside map it has one string and one integer, right? Now when I do df.select, data frame.select, I'm using same from JSON, I'm selecting same value, and I'm just, instead of putting this hard-coded value of map string and integer. I am just saying that use my schema 01 which I have created here. Alright, and I'm saying display df03. Now what happens over here? You can see that map got created, right? My key is string and the value is integer. Now instead of integer, if I want to make it as string, can I do that? Yes, you can do that. You can simply put in string type over here, and now if you run this, what will happen is both your key and value will become string. So this is how it actually works. Okay, now let's move ahead and let's see how you can even pass on the schema for the struct type. So right now what we have done, so I'll just do a quick review or quick recap here itself. So I have created a data frame. Now using that data frame, what I have done, I have showed you how to use from JSON to convert your JSON string, which is df.value, into a struct type, right, by passing in direct schema. Now again I have told you how to use from JSON to convert your data into map type using hard-coded schema. Now then I showed you how to use from JSON to convert your JSON string to the map type using not hard-coded schema. Now similarly I am going to show you how to use your not hard-coded schema, how to parameterize basically your schema and convert your JSON string into struct type. Now again the same thing, df.select from JSON df.value, everything is same. Schema I am writing my schema over here. I'm saying it is a struct type, right? And struct type and this is a struct field. Now what is this struct field? If you have watched my previous videos in Databricks, you would already know it. So struct field represents your each row, right? Struct field is actually used to define the schema for your each row. So if again I have another row, right, then again I'm going to write then again I will actually write struct field, and then inside it whatever the field name is, let's say field name, and whatever my data type is, it can be string, it can be integer, right? So this is how we actually write this schema. And people coming from the Spark background, they already know this. Struct type is basically defining the structure of your schema. Struct field defines the structure of your row, right? So right now we just have one right now we just have this one row. So basically I'm just telling you over here that here I'm just defining my schema, how my schema looks like, right? Let me just, okay, now if you see here, and I'm just passing my schema over here. Now let me simply run this. Now the moment I run this, you will actually see that I call my JSON string got converted into struct type. How it got converted into struct type? By using this schema over here. So here I am using struct schema. At the top I used map schema. I used map type to create map schema, and here I used struct type to create struct schema, right? So I showed you how to convert your JSON string into struct type, into map type using a hard-coded and non-hard-coded schema, both. Now I will also show you how to work with the integer values, right? How to actually work with your integer value. Does it even work with the integer values? Yes, it works with the integer value. You can define an array type schema as well. Now how do you do that? Now if you look here, data. So this is my data. Right here I have value 1 is an integer, right? Anything which is not in quotes and is a number is basically an integer. Now if you see, it is in triple quote. The second value is in triple quotes. It means it is a string, right? It is a string, but inside string you have the numbers, you have a list, you have an array inside that particular string. So you are defining a schema here, array type. So first I showed you map type, then I showed you struct type, and now I'm showing you array type. Now inside this array type I'm saying all my data should be integer type. All my data should be integer type. And then I'm saying that I'm creating data frame. Then I'm creating data frame from this data, right? And I'm saying use this data, and these are the columns, key and value, and display my data frame. So let me first So let us first simply display the data frame, and let me simply run this. Now you will actually see how your data frame looks like. So your data frame looks like this. Key is 1, right, and the value is this. Now don't confuse, this is just the column name, okay? This key value is nothing but the column names, right? Number 1, this is a column name, and this 1 2 3, this is again a column name, right? So now if I expand it as well, so you can actually see my key is long, which is nothing but numeric only. Now if you look at a value, this is a string, so this is actually a string. Okay, now if I want to use from JSON for this, can I use it? Yes, I can use it. df dot select from JSON, take this df dot value. So when I say df dot value, it will pick up this value and it will parse this value for the schema. What is the schema? Schema is what you define, right? Schema is what you define. What we have defined here, array type integer, right? So when we run this and when we try to display this, this is the output that we get. So it has taken this particular value, which was a string, but now it has displayed it as an array format. So from string it has converted it into an array format. So if you look here, it has converted it into the array format 1 2 and 3. So this is how you can also convert it into array format. So remember that in the from JSON, this particular value is nothing but it is a string. It can be a JSON string. So it has to be a string, and this has to be a schema, and this has to be a valid schema for this. The schema has to be a valid schema for this, right? So this is something that you need to understand and practice on your own, because you definitely need to practice it on your own. Now similarly, in case of SQL, if you want to use from JSON, you can use it. This is your JSON string over here. This is your JSON string. Alright, and this is what? This is nothing but your schema. You are saying you are saying A is one column, A is the one header and B is another header, and then it is of integer type and the B is of double type. Now if I run it, you will actually see that from this string, you get it converted into your right now it is in the string format over here, right? If you look, it is coming in quotes, right? Now what you have done, you have parsed this JSON to this particular schema, right? This is how your from JSON actually works. Now similarly, schema of JSON, right? I have shown you how you can use schema of JSON, right? If you see over here, now if you look here, the schema, right, I am just passing in my schema over here, and then similarly if you look at schema, I'm just passing in my schema over here, right? And again, if I look at the schema 01, I am passing my schema over here, right? Now from schema, what it does, right, from JSON schema, what it does, similar to your schema of CSV, schema of JSON will basically give you the schema of whatever string that you pass over here, right? Whatever JSON string you will pass over here, it will give you the schema. Now if I run this cell, right, now you can actually see it has given me the schema, the DDL schema of it, right? It is saying that it is an array of struct type, right? And then you have column, which is big int. So this is the schema of JSON. Now using the schema of JSON as well, what you can do is, using the schema of JSON, you can actually use it in defining the schema of your JSON string literal. So you can use the schema of this JSON as well. Now if you look at this command 11, again an example of schema of JSON, right? So spark dot range 1, what it will give you, it will give you the range from 0 to 1, 1 excluded, so it will give you 0, right? Now when I say display df dot select schema of JSON, select schema of JSON, now you have to pass in the literal over here. You have to pass in the JSON literal over here. The moment you pass it, right, this is basically a JSON string that you are passing it, right? And if you do a display on it, right, let me just simply run this. So the moment you do a display on it, you will actually see, okay, what does it show? It show it as a struct type where A is the key and big int is the value over here. So it actually showed you the structure, right? Similarly, again, if I say, schema is equal to schema of JSON, now I am giving the JSON value over here, right? And then we can also use options, which I showed you even in my schema of CSV, right? If you use these options, there are multiple options that you can use. Allow unquoted field names true. So what does it mean? So here if you see, this A was nothing but a field name. It is quoted, it is in quotes. Now in this part it is not in quotes, so that is why we are saying allow unquoted field names equal to true. So it is allowing unquoted field names in the schema, right? And then you are asking, okay, display me that schema, right? Display me that schema. So if you see here, then again you can actually see struct a big int, same schema. So basically inside it, the only difference that you gave is that you did not pass a in quotes, but still it worked. Why? Because your options, and I showed you in my previous video, there are multiple options that you can choose from, right? There are multiple options you can choose from. So this is a particular link which I will also leave in the description box. So here it gives you a more detailed information, and also it gives you all the options, right? Allow comments, allow unquoted field name. This is the one which we have used. So by default it is false, right? But we made it to true and we made it actually work. So this is how you can actually work with this from JSON, and you can use this schema from JSON, right? So these are the few very important functions that we can actually use on day-to-day basis, and these are actually used very well. These are very well used in day-to-day development activities. So I hope you liked it, you understood this, and you do have to practice it, because without practicing it you will not understand it. You have to make sure that you go back and practice this. So thank you so much for being till here, and do remember to like, share and subscribe my channel.